I'm the host of the Loud Girl Who Reads podcast. This is episode 6 here, and today we're going to be talking about introverts and how introverts and reading go together or how they might not. And also I asked TikTok and Reddit a question, and we're going to be looking at some of those answers and also my opinion on how introverts and reading kind of go together. So stay tuned for all that and more on this episode of the Loud Girl Who Reads podcast. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be talking about introverts and reading, and it came to me because, like, the question alone that I asked TikTok and Reddit, because it's confusing to me whenever people are extremely introverted in their reading life, and then whenever it comes to being out and about, they're really extroverted, and then it's just very weird concepts, especially considering nerdy people in reading, and so this is what I asked Reddit, at least. So I asked them, I said, do you think that you have to be an introvert to like reading? I know for me personally, I have to strive to be any kind of extrovert, but at this point, whenever I'm with other nerdy people, I get really loud, hence the name of the podcast. So, and then I also continue to say, it just makes sense when I think about other readers, and I know that most of them are introverts. I know as well that in a Venn diagram, they are practically an exact circle. So rather than like extroverts and introverts and in the middle being reading, and so you get a little bit of both, I feel like those two just kind of go together, like reading and introverts. Yeah, and I can see both sides of it, but anyways, that's what I asked TikTok and Reddit, because even though I have my own opinion on it, I wanted to see what other people thought about it. Is it just me who sees the similarities between the two things, how there's a lot of readers who really, really like being introverted and having introvert tendencies, does that actually correspond, or am I the one who's going crazy? So let's look at some of those answers, because not all of them are very positive or very kind towards me, but I am very curious about it. Now for Reddit specifically, I posted this in a introverts little subcategory. Now, some people don't like this category, and so they responded like they didn't like it. So this one person says, introverts like downtime too. It's not just an introvert thing. Starting off strong. Sometimes I hate this sub. People throw around the word introvert without really knowing what it means. Being an introvert doesn't mean we're all lonely, boring, chill, etc. Just being an extrovert doesn't mean they're all loud and obnoxious and happy, etc. I'm not anyone's entire personality. And there are a ton of people who have the same qualities, or both, and they called it a word, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce, because I would do so poorly. But they said, so yes, extroverts like to read. Yeah, so they weren't very happy. Now, I understand the whole introvert little, people make it their entire personality just to be an introvert or an extrovert. They'll just be telling you about their day, and they're just like, yeah, I'm just so excited to go home because I'm just so tired of all these people. I'm such an introvert. And I understand. That annoys me too. And I would say that I'm an introvert forced extrovert. If someone ever asks me if I'm an introvert or an extrovert, that's usually what I tell them. Now, it's not because I'm some fancy breed. I think that that's pretty normal for people to want to be introverted, but they have to force themselves to be extroverted. And so to me, what that means would be, okay, I really enjoy being at home. I really enjoy quiet time. I really enjoy not being around people. I also really enjoy being around closer people. I don't really like, that kind of, I don't really enjoy going to parties. I don't really enjoy things with a lot of people. That's my idea of being an introvert, but then I also force myself to be an extrovert because once I can get myself forced into, a social, event or whatever, I'll be okay, but I have to force myself to want to be in that situation. An extrovert, at least in my mind, would be someone who thrives off of being around people. They're really good at bouncing ideas off of other people. They enjoy seeing other people. They can't stand to be home. Now, and I know people who say that they're introverts, but at the same time, they can't stand a single day without going somewhere. And I know so many people who are if say whenever the pandemic happened, or whenever we've had snow days and, the roads have been icy for a few days, and they cannot stand to be at home. It doesn't run in their blood. They just can't do it, and they have to go somewhere. They have to be somewhere around people, and that's just where they have to be. Now, there are introverts who are like that too, but to me that, reeks of being an extrovert, where you have to be around people, otherwise you just feel trapped. And there are people who are like that, and there's nothing wrong with being like that, but I would not put myself like that. I mean, maybe after a really long time I want to be outside, but honestly, the pandemic, I strived being at home for so long, and that sounds so terrible, but I genuinely, it's in my comfort zone to just be at home, chill, that kind of thing. I don't have to be out and doing anything in my personal experience. Let's look at some more answers that people had. So one person said, no, reading is for everyone. You don't have to like reading to be an introvert. Reading is a hobby and something people do to escape reality, study, or for people, it can be entertaining. Not arguing with that at all. But I was just curious, genuinely, I don't know how people see that. I know some introverts try to claim it as a it's only us thing, or they'll just be like, they're like this, where they're like, no, it's not. And I love the attitude towards it. Someone else said, I don't think so. Introverts might often prefer the solitary nature of reading, but many extroverts also enjoy diving into books too. It's more about personal interest rather than personality type. Perfect answer. I would literally put that as a perfect answer. Someone else said, no, the love of reading has nothing to do with being an introvert or extrovert. Might just be a coincidence with people around you. Maybe. I want to talk about that a little later. But someone else said, I'm an introvert, but I am not a fan of reading books because I have concentration issues. I may have ADHD also. Which, yeah, that's very much a struggle with people with ADHD. If they can't sit down to read a book and keep focus, it's very hard. A lot of people said, I'm an introvert, I don't like reading. Which, I know introverts who don't like reading. I'm not saying that that's necessarily every single time, but if you're a reader, a lot of the times it does mean that you're an introvert. Someone else said, yes, extroverts cannot shut up for long enough to read. Don't know if that's a joke or not. It seems like a joke, but also some people have that way of thinking where they're just like, yeah, extroverts just need to shut up. They couldn't do this. They couldn't do, well, not my personal take. No, reading is a choice for everyone. To be honest, someone that says, I'm very introverted and hate reading. I will fall asleep on page 2. Not sure if it's ADHD, but I have to be up and moving. Sitting and reading is like torture. I mean, if you can't sit down and read, there's nothing wrong with that, but I can see where you're coming from. But yeah, so very, very different ones. Someone else said, I'm introverted and read, but my mother reads a lot more and is extroverted, so I don't know. That also plays into what I'm going to talk about in a second. Someone says I'm an introvert and I love to read, but I've also seen a mixture of introverts and extroverts that read on TikTok. Someone else said, because I was stating my opinion on it, like I've already said, so I was saying, I'm an introvert, but, I do this, and someone commented and said, you're an introvert who masks as an extrovert to maintain friendships, and you read heavily as a form of escapism. Hi, I'm you too. Which, I don't know if I should feel seen, or if I should just feel like that person is being very creepy, because that seemed a little too spot on. It was, like, I honestly read it, and I'm just expecting to see, like, what I've read, where it's like, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, no, yes, maybe, whatever. Not someone to fully, like, not even know me and be able to untangle that web. But you know what? And a lot of people do say that it's, a personal choice whether you want to read, or introvert and extrovert doesn't really play into it. But I will say, I think reading does something to you mentally, in the sense that to read, you have to be able to sit down, you have to have your full attention on something, or else you're not going to read properly, at least, and you have to be able to comprehend. And that's so polar opposite to the way things are where you're on your phone a lot. And I say this to mean, I think extroverts, this is not a scientifically proven thing. I think extroverts have a harder time reading because they would rather be on their phone, because it's a way for them to, escape. It's a way for them to channel their energy into something other than being social, but they can do it on their phone. they have something to do. It's a hobby just like reading is. I think introverts prefer reading as a form of solitude because if they're on their phone, that's still people. That's just my personal stance on it. And I haven't put too much thought into that, but okay, if you're on your phone, you can talk to people, you can look at other people, you can FaceTime people, you can text people. I know there's a lot of forms of communication. You can read about different people on your phone, but you're getting pictures, you're getting all these different things. And unless you're reading a children's book, you're really not going to see pictures with reading. You're going to be in your own brain. Whereas when you're on your phone, you're looking at something and you're kind of processing what you're looking at rather than completely making your own mental image of it. And so I just think that it's more suitable, and I think that it's more common that readers are introverts because that's their own way of having another inner bubble. Most introverts have their house or their family or their friends, I would say by themselves, family, friends, and do almost like a circle that just expands out. And, at the very end is more people. But the basis of all of it is, in yourself. That's where introverts like to lie, is in yourself. And reading is in yourself. You're not branching out. That's their comfort zone. And reading taps more into it because you're in your own brain thinking of how this is, playing out, how the story is unraveling in your own head. Whereas an extrovert, they're more comfortable around people and then around maybe their closer friends, family, by themselves. And they try not to necessarily get by themselves, and sometimes it's because they are scared to be by themselves, sometimes it's because they honestly just don't enjoy it, and being on your phone branches it closer to the inner circle, which is, being around more people. And again, FOMO kind of plays into that fear of missing out. An introvert doesn't really care about missing out as much because they're more inwardly focused on in their comfort, meaning. Whereas an extrovert, their fear of missing out is, part of their dependency. They need to be in some sort of way of around people. And having some sort of connection to that would be through their phone. Now, this is just a personal, I just genuinely think that makes the most sense. And so that's part of the reason why I was asking this was not necessarily to say that there was a right way to be a reader, there was a right way to read or to be, but just because I wanted to see what people's reasoning was. Because I asked the question, and why? Why do you think that that's the case? Because I thought that someone would actually think about it for a second. And I'm not saying that these aren't well thought out answers, but a lot of them, one of them where it said, I'm introverted and I read, but my mother reads and is a lot more extroverted. I bet you that her mother was not extroverted when she started reading. She was probably introverted just like she was, but as time goes on, you have to realize at some point that you can't be super introverted your entire life. It is very hard to, at least. I know people who are introverted and who are very lonely because of it as they get older. Because it develops trust issues, honestly. I think that's kind of the root of it is if you are so introverted and you grow and you don't grow to be at least a little bit more extroverted, then what you end up being is just sad and lonely. And that's just what I've seen. That's not necessarily proven, but that's just what I've seen. And I think that, again, looking at that, her mother was probably introverted whenever she was younger, but then now she's more extroverted because she realized that, that's just part of life is just you have to become somewhat extroverted. Otherwise, even though you're not afraid of missing out, you will miss out. And so at some point you kind of just realize that. And I know that with myself being an introvert, forced extrovert, that in the long run, there are a lot of times where I can enjoy something even though I had to force myself to get into the situation where I enjoy it. And also at taking that and being a Christian, I can't be a Christian and fully wear that title being an introvert entirely because the Bible says to go out into the world. And I can't even go, out into a public space if I'm an introvert and tell the gospel. I can't do that being an introvert. And so, I'm not saying that you have to hide a part of yourself. I just think that you're more than a label. And I think that that's part of what a lot of people were saying were it's not an introvert and extrovert thing. That's just, a personality trait. and the reading is just a hobby, which is very much true. Reading, or a reader, so-called, is not a label that I think is very valid. I might call myself a reader, but I know that there are people who, and like I read, a decent amount of books, but I know that there are a lot of weeks where I don't read. Not read books at least, or even like thick books, or read the whole book, but throughout your entire life, you're going to have to read something. I know there's a lot of different, handicaps that people have, but at some point, there's some way that you can come to comprehend something to a point where you can be somewhat of a reader. Like, I mean, everyone is a reader in some sort of sense. And so, I just think that to say that an introvert has to be a reader, or that a reader is even really a title at all, is just kind of weird to me. I don't know. And I'm wanting to talk to my sister about a little bit, because she is very much not a reader by that sense, by the sense of reads books on a regular basis. And I genuinely want to know why that is. I know a lot of people just find it boring. And part of me thinks, okay, well, that's just not their cup of tea. But I want to get to the root of that. I know that a lot of people have something that I don't know the specific name of it. It's slipping my brain, but it's where you can't imagine, like you can't paint a picture in your head. Like some people, they see everything as, or they hear things, like you hear your thoughts in your head. Some people don't even do that. Some people see it as, like they would read a book in their brain, what they would see was just words. They wouldn't see a mental picture of something. Some people even think in 3D, which I think is amazing. But others, mostly just see like a mental image of what's happening, like they're watching a movie in their head while they're reading. And so that's part of what plays into it in my mind. I think that a lot of people don't know that that's actually a thing. Now, I could be going crazy and maybe most people do, but I know a lot of people who found out late in life, like you think in pictures? Like you can think out a story by like just reading it? Like you see a mental image. And I know for myself, whenever I was little, I used to, I would have movies I would watch so much and TV shows that I would watch so much that if I was the type of kid who I would watch stuff to go to sleep. But if I couldn't have a TV and I needed something to occupy my brain while I was like trying to go to sleep, I would literally think back to a movie or a TV show that I'd watched so many times, and I would rewatch it in my head. And I thought that was the coolest thing. Not that cool, but I would do that all the time, because if I was at, say, a friend's house or my TV went off or whatever, I would just think out an episode of something, and it would help me to go to sleep, because that's what I was used to, was watching something to go to sleep or whatever, because that's just how I was raised. And so I think that does play a role into it. I knew one lady that I'd worked with whenever I'd worked at a coffee shop, where she told me that, she had what I was saying, where she genuinely didn't, like, if I was going to tell her to do something, like how to make a drink or how to make a sandwich or this, that, and the other, that I should, like, just be patient with me. She was like, I do suffer from this, it's not a big deal, but if you want to show me, that works so much better for me. That would be great. And so it was more like I would tell her instructions and she would be like, okay, well, I can hear you now, but I'm just saying it's going to be really hard for me to remember exactly what you're saying, because I need to kind of see it to imagine what I'm supposed to be doing. And same thing goes for reading. If you don't know what you're, like, if you can, like, if it was a math problem and you're saying, like, 2 + 2 = 4, then you can see that, the answer is 4. But if you're saying the dragon was red and it had fire breathing out of it, and it was attacking the castle on the left, and you're having to do some mental gymnastics to figure out what is going on, it makes it not enjoyable. I wouldn't want to read if I couldn't mentally kind of picture at least a little bit what I was seeing. Even just from the description of a face, if you can't imagine at least somewhat what a face looks like, then it's a little hard to understand and really enjoy. And so I think that kind of ties into why people don't like reading. But, and I feel bad for those who think that being an introvert means that you have to like reading, and then not only that, but you can't fit this category because it just doesn't click for you. It's not something that you enjoyed, so you feel like you're missing out. And I do feel bad for people who don't enjoy reading, but I also know that I don't think they would be, like, this sounds terrible coming from someone who literally writes books and, has so many and loves it, there's so many more beautiful things in the world. I don't think if someone didn't enjoy reading, or they couldn't really read and enjoy it, they would be missing out on something. But there are also so many more amazing things that they can enjoy. Like there's music, other types of art. And I think that writing really is an art form after doing it myself, but at the end of the day, reading is not only for introverts. I think that more introverts like it than extroverts, and that's just my personal opinion, and from what I've seen and heard, and, but I think that it's also, it is just a hobby. It's not a personality trait, like being an introvert and extrovert is. It's not an entire personality at all. I hate it whenever people make one hobby their entire personality, whenever people are made up of so much more than just that alone. And so, you can have your opinion on it. That's just what mine is, Reading is for introverts or extroverts. It's not an entire personality. It is just a hobby. And at the end of the day, I wish that there were more readers I could talk to and be friends with or whatever. But there are also a whole lot of other amazing things in the world. So let's go ahead and end this subject with my own reading and writing update. Sorry, almost forgot. Reading and writing. Okay, so my reading and writing update for this week is a little different. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, I finished writing my 5th book, which I'm pretty proud of. I've written 5 whole books in less than a year. Well, actually, take that back. It's been just about a year and a half. I was thinking since my first book was published. But it's been, a year and a half I've written 5 books, which I think is pretty impressive, especially for someone my age. But, not sticking on that, I'm really, really excited about this process of this book. And you know what? Just for the podcast listeners I have, I'm going to go ahead and give you a sneak peek as to what this book is about. And it is called Antidotal Hearts. It's all about a woman who's granted the ability to heal people. But what is really going to happen to her when she heals someone who is meant to cause pain? And not only that, is a weapon for the government. So it's very, very, twisty, turny, whatever. Not super big twists in it, but at the same time, it will keep you interested. It was probably one of my favorite things to write, which was weird because I talked the least about it until it was done than most of my other books. So, yeah, and also not a lot of people know that I'm even working on this. I know that people knew that I was writing another book, but, this one's so unconnected to the other universe that you, and the Voice series are in. This is not even close to compared to it in the same universe, but it is in that YA genre that I enjoy, and I know other people enjoy. It has its Christian basis. I love it so much, and not only that, it is dedicated to my boyfriend's younger sister, Emma, who I love dearly, and she kind of inspired the main character, Emma, and it's basically her journey after getting a fresh new start, and then getting thrusted into this new ability, and what happens to her. Super excited for its release, probably the fall, still working on that. It needs to be edited first, obviously, and with that, editing process is going pretty great for A Voice of Hope, and A Voice of Destiny. So, A Voice of Hope has been, from what I've heard, a whole mess. The editing software mixed with my editor, I've been having the hardest problem. I say my editor, my mother, have been having the hardest problem with this one, but I hope that A Voice of Destiny is going to go better, and then hopefully it will be released in these next couple weeks. That's big, hopefully. And not only that, but for as far as reading and writing, it kind of ties into what I'm just working on, which is I've been working on my kids' YouTube channel, which is Bible Stories with Miss Lindsay. I've been going through different topics and things that kids have challenging times remembering or understanding, whereas I also do calming background music because as someone who's been a substitute teacher and, has a younger niece, I've had a bunch of times where I've just needed something to put on in the background where it's something to listen to and it kind of calms people down. To people, I say kids. I meant kids down because sometimes you just need a little bit of filler music just to keep the mood just right. It's a whole mess. But anyways, I have that and also Bible stories, how to pray, different things like that just to help kids to know what they believe and not only be strong in their faith, but also, enjoy God's creation while listening to background music that will help them to have good times with their family. I'm very excited about that project. And, that's kind of something that I do in my free time in between writing and kids' church and substituting. And it's just a whole lot. But I love it a lot. And so, yeah. And as far as reading, I don't think I've picked up a book in probably a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. I've been so busy and tired. And then whenever I sit down, I don't feel like reading. And that's the honest truth. I read my Bible, but I haven't really been reading a whole lot. And I know that's what I said last time, but it's just, I need to sit down and read. But my brain, I feel like if I sit down and read, my brain will just shut down, genuinely speaking. So, I only really have enough time to read my own books and the Bible. And I think that that's okay for right now, though I do want to get back into reading a little bit more. It's just been a lot of busy times, busy weeks, busy days, busy hours, everything. So, let's go ahead and hop straight into a tip to leave you with. So my tip to leave you with today is just to remember that being a reader, not a suitable title for most people. Being a reader is a fun thing to say you are, but also at the same time, it's not your entire personality. Not only that, but being an introvert or an extrovert does not give you the right to only be a reader in your life. You aren't stuck being a reader just because you're an introvert. You don't have to feel ashamed because you are an introverted person and you just don't enjoy doing reading at all. Don't blame you. You don't have to worry about being an extrovert, but then also enjoying a little bit of quiet time to read. Don't see any problem with that. And just genuinely speaking, there's so much more to life than just reading books. And that sounds kind of dumb speaking in the case that I'm literally talking about this on my podcast, The Loud Girl Who Reads, which is kind of like the name that I kind of gave myself because I've gotten both of those, the girl who reads, the loud girl. I've gotten both of those. I kind of just put them together. But, in reality, it's not your entire identity. And also, anybody who says that do you really, no. So, hopefully you can see past dumb titles and you can just live your life to its fullest extent outside of that. So, I hope you have a good day. Remember that everything you do where you like, comment, subscribe, follow this on Spotify, rate it, everything you do helps me to continue to do this and also look forward to the day where I can monetize it. So thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoy listening and happy reading.